I did not remember how weird this movie is.
Hmm. Age of Ultron, Avengers: Age of Ultron might be, and this is something I was just thinking. How I don't know how much I like the first two Avengers movies. The second two are great, but Age of Ultron has some problems. But also it has some good parts.
Mhm.
It has some good parts to it as well. But overall, Joss Whedon is just kind of a weird movie. Yeah, you're right. What did you before we get into it? What was the weirdest parts that you thought was like? What is the? Like, I can't believe they even made this.
I can't really put my finger on it. It's just kinda everything's weird.
Hmm.
Everything's weird. Like, maybe even the editing is weird.
Yeah,
Some of the scenes are weird.
I think anytime that you have um any kind of CGI things like the I used to be the CW had like the CW DC shows. Did you watch any of those?
The Arrow
Yeah,
or
yeah,
just
yeah.
Arrow and
Hmm.
Flash, I watched those too.
Yeah, so the Arrow at the end of the Arrow season, they had the Crisis on Infinite Earths, of course, and the monsters they had to fight were just these CGI looking like weird things that was flying through the air, and it's always weird. Like they had no budget, so it looked weird when they were fighting them.
Right.
But even in Age of Ultron, when they were fighting these robots, it doesn't feel right. Like it just feels like that. At some point the technology is getting good and the special effects look amazing,
Mhm.
but at some point it just looks like people fighting nothing. It's like, and to have them fight nothing for an extended period of time just kind of feels odd. And one thing too, like when the Maximoff twins met Ultron for the first time,
Mhm.
there was no like, what are we doing? Like, what is this thing? Like there was no real fear. They weren't like, ah, like it's a massive robot talking to
I
you.
guess they knew what to expect though, because that was Strucker's plan all along was to put that mind gem inside of a robot.
Where'd you get that from?
Isn't that what they said in the movie that he was planning to
Uh,
do? I think that's what Tony
they
Stark
said
said
that
he was planning to
they
do.
said that they were working on robotics.
Because the Ultron robotics came from Strucker's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They are definitely
Yeah.
working on robot. Okay, that's you. Okay, you answered the question there. That's true. But still, I'd be like, I'm not dealing with this thing.
Right. There was a
Um,
weird scene. I just don't even know really. I mean, I kind of know why they put it in, but there's a scene where all of Tony Stark's suits are coming back to the building, and it's just a
mhm.
long shot on his suits coming back to the building that I
Yeah,
felt like I
they
didn't
were
need.
they were yeah, automaton robots. Yeah, they were flying towards the building. It was like showing them fly. Yeah. I think
And then go into the building, and it's like a really intimate camera shot of them going into the building.
I
I don't
think
know why I needed that.
what they wanted to establish, I think, is one of the robots got damaged by a
Yeah,
human.
that's the
And
I think that's the entire reason for the shot, but it didn't need to be as long as it
no,
was.
no, and plus, like the robot that was damaged didn't have artificial intelligence, so the robot didn't have any emotional reaction to that. So I don't really know what. Yeah, it's just
Yeah, the robot got damaged with kind of a creepy looking
acid
smiley
type
face
deal.
on it on
Yeah,
the head of it,
yeah.
which
Well,
Ultron later uses.
there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in this movie. If you look at the show notes, it's pretty dense. So let's go ahead and get started and see what we get into. What you got for me?
Just can you tell us about Strucker?
Not much. He's a Hydra villain from the comics, definitely from the comics. I'm kind of surprised that the movie didn't dig deeper into him. We don't really see him after this, but he's dense enough and major enough to be a huge comic villain for the movies. This didn't do it. He's back. He came up in 1964.
Mm,
So he's been around a very long time, and he's just a Hydra villain. There's nothing really special about him besides like this little barnacle he wears on his eye. But it's odd to me that they would give him so much time in the comics. Like he's been around for a very long time, and they don't make him a major villain in the movies. It's kind of like okay, and then they kill him off, which is like insane to me. That's completely insane. Like I don't know why they made an editorial decision just to kill his character off.
mhm.
And they didn't have to. They could have gotten another actor to play him at some point, or just not introduce him at all. So there's not much to say as far as like who Strucker is, as far as his connection to the comics and the movies, because you never see him again. But in the comics, he's been around for a while.
Okay. What about Sokovia?
You know what? I just did not spend time looking at that, and I should have. Because I was making show notes and I was trying to cover
Yeah,
everything.
you gotta cover all these strange places that come up, like Madripoor and Sokovia.
You know what? Is it in the comics? I'm going to check real quick. I don't think so, but
I did check.
oh,
Well, I
it
don't.
is.
Actually, I don't know. It could just be in the MCU. I
No,
don't
it
know.
is. It's in the MCU. It's in there. 616. But no. But listen, it came up in 2014, and this movie came out in
Oh, okay.
2015. So you know our rule: anything past 2000,
Right.
it's kind of
So
tricky.
they put that in the comics while this movie was in
It
production.
sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so yeah, Sokovia, it's like nothing to do with the comics at all.
While
I
we're
never
on that, let's touch real quick. Just a quick question. We don't really need to go into the characters right now, but
sure
are Wanda and
no.
Pietro
N- Oh,
from there in the comics?
oh God. Okay. All right. All right. So this is going to take up a significant amount of time of our podcast. I'll try and make it short. Wanda and Pietro were not from Sokovia in the comics. I think they were from Romania, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. I can actually click on this and check real quick. But they're definitely not from Sokovia. They are Roman Jews, so I think they're called gypsies. I think that's the bad term we use. I think you call them now. I think the term is what's the term we call? It's Rome. I forget
Yeah,
what it's
there's
called.
some word that
Yeah,
Europeans use. I can't remember what it is.
yeah, but I don't want to call them gypsies. So they're from Romania. And where they're actually from is we don't really know as far as like a country of origin. We don't really know. The
Mm,
biggest thing that we need to establish here, though, is the problem with Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch and Marvel. So backtrack a little bit. At some point, Marvel sold all the X-Men rights to who bought them? Sony? No, it wasn't Sony. Who bought X-Men?
Fox? Was it Fox?
I think it's Fox. And so when they do that, it's not like just a couple X-Men characters. They sell everything. So everybody who was an X-Men, the idea of mutants, everything was sold. And so you now have Marvel Comics, like the comic situation. You have the comics, and then you have the X-Men stuff happening at a different studio, and then you have Marvel trying to do their own thing, right? So when Marvel Age of Ultron came out, Fox still owned all of X-Men, including Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. And so Marvel had to figure out a way because they could share those properties, but X-Men had a right to have stories with them as much as Marvel, because in the comics, way back in the day, it was established that Magneto was the father of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And so
Okay.
because they were Magneto's children, they were technically part of the X-Men like canon. And that didn't make Marvel had a problem because Marvel wanted to have them in the X-Men in the Avengers movies, right? Because they
Hmm.
also were Avengers. They've been Avengers for a very, very long time, since the 60s. I think they should have been X-Men number 4 in 1964, but they were in Avengers in the 60s as well. So they've been around a very, very long time.
Hmm.
So, so what Marvel had to figure out is how can we have these characters in our Avengers movies without having to deal with Magneto? And so in the comics, at some point, well, actually, it happened in the movies first. When Age of Ultron came out, there was no mention of Magneto, and they established that Hydra and Strucker gave them their powers, right? So they're not mutants. And so the question is, does the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as of the making of Age of Ultron, have mutants? And the answer is we don't know. But we do know that Magneto's not their father. But it could be. We don't know for sure, right? But we do know they're not mutants because they got
Yeah,
their
they're not
powers
called mutants in here. They're enhanced
enhanced. So they got their powers from the Mind Gem. Okay, that's been established.
by
But the
Strucker.
by Strucker. But the problem is that when Marvel brought back all the X-Men properties, now they have all those properties now, all of
Right.
them. Yeah.
Yep.
And if you watched WandaVision, there was a reference. Agatha told Wanda that her powers were enhanced by Strucker, but they weren't given to her by Strucker. And she made that very clear. You had powers before your experiments.
Hmm.
And so it was a look. I was like Wanda was able to stop that bomb that was in the house from exploding with her powers, but she didn't know it. And that's what Agatha established.
Ah.
And if you watched WandaVision, Quicksilver shows up, right?
Yeah, but
And
it's a different
it's
actor.
it's the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies. And in the X-Men movies, he is a mutant. So this was a real problem if you watch WandaVision. WandaVision established that, hey, we're going to bring in Pietro, but he's going to be the Pietro from the X-Men movies, and he's going to be the mutant version. And everybody thought, oh my gosh, WandaVision is going to establish that there are mutants, and that Pedro is going to stay here, and he's going to be mutant, and we're going to get X-Men. Nope. In WandaVision, they completely destroyed that. That guy was just an actor, which was really, really bad. That was a really bad thing for WandaVision to do because they played with people's expectations. They
Mhm.
knew that we were going to be hyped up when we saw him, but they destroyed it at the end of it, which is terrible. We can talk about that more at some point later. The whole thing is the comic connections to Wanda and Quicksilver has been retconned to death. And there's no real way to establish who or what they are anymore. The comics have already destroyed the connection with the Magneto. The comics have said that, hey, Magneto's not really their father. And I find that really problematic because Magneto's connection to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch and the fact that they're mutants is a big deal. I mean, House of M, which is a massive, massive, massive comic story, is about Scarlet Witch deleting like almost every mutant power on the planet. She just says there are no more mutants in this entire world. And why would she do that if she's not a mutant? Right. And so it's
Hmm.
like, it's so problematic for Marvel and it's just so bad and it's so messed up. And so if you're a fan watching these movies, I wrote about this in my Medium post, if anybody has read it, and the links in the show notes. I wrote about this. The movies and the comics are diverging in such a way that if you only watch the movies, you're not getting all of it anymore. And if you're
Mhm.
watching the comics, you're not getting satisfied anymore. And so I don't know I don't know how to fix it because like
Se
this Wonder Quicksilver stuff is a mess. Go ahead.
It seems weird that they would rewrite basically the history of these characters in the comics just because they didn't have the movie rights. I mean, they're already establishing that they're doing the movies separately from the comics. So why feel the need to go and rewrite like a major piece of the comics just to fit your movies? It doesn't make sense to
It
me.
doesn't make sense to me either, Mike. And I think it's definitely it's definitely from an editorial managerial place. Like some big wig, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, do this now. And like a writer has to be like, well, look, my editor told me I need a job. I've wanted to write comics my entire life, and they just told me to destroy this character. Like this happens all the time. Spider-Man, there's a story in Spider-Man called One Last Day where Spider-Man and Mary Jane Watson were married for a very long time. They got married in the 70s. And so they were married in comics for a long, long time. And I read the comics when Peter Parker and Mary Jane were married. And so through my entire teens and 20s, I knew only a married couple. And then at some point, Marvel wanted to break that up, maybe because of the movies, maybe because they thought they'd write better stories if Peter Parker was single. But they created a convoluted storyline where Peter Parker has to make a deal with the devil, and it's like because Aunt May dies and he wants her back. So the devil brings back Aunt May, but it destroys his entire love with Mary Jane, and his entire marriage never happened. And it's like I was reading that comic, and I was like, that just told me that my entire childhood just did not happen. And I know that's really dramatic, but if you've
Mhm.
read comics for that long and all these comic stories, and then they say this didn't happen, like I'm like, well, I stopped reading Spider-Man. It was a big deal because I loved Spider-Man. I was like, I'm not reading this anymore. So
That'd be like Bill Watterson going back and saying Hobbs was actually a tiger the whole time.
yeah, oh yeah, oh or even worse, saying that Calvin was mentally disturbed for thinking that Hobbs was alive, something like that. You know, just
Yeah,
taking the
pulling
this.
like uh, Harry Potter. What's Harry Potter lady's name?
I don't know anything about Harry Potter.
Okay, all right.
I
The
never watched the
author has
movies.
actually done stuff like that, like what you described. So,
Ugh, it's just, and I understand what's going on. It's fine. It's fine if they want to do it. They have the right. But when they do that, I really do feel like they just destroy people's like imagination of what these characters are going on. Anyway,
mhm.
The
Alright.
so the Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch that you're getting in this movie, and by the way, they never call him Quicksilver or the Scarlet Witch. So the Pedro and Wanda you get in this movie are not exactly what you get from the comics. Just to let you
Okay. I guess while we're already on them, when I first watched this movie and Pietro dies, it means nothing to me. But on this rewatch, now that I know a little bit more about Pietro, I was like, "Oh, man, why'd they have to do that?" You know?
know.
Um, but also that's another part of the weird part of the movie where, and actually my son was really upset because he apparently likes Pietro a lot from video games or something like that, or cartoons.
Had you never seen it before? Was that the first time you watched the movie?
Um, I'm sure he's watched it before, but I don't know. Anyway, another weird part of this movie was the strange foreshadowing that I guess Joss Whedon put in here about killing off Pietro.
What's the
Um,
foreshadowing?
so Steve Rogers, as they're getting ready to battle, he says, "If they hurt you, hurt them back.
Yeah,
If they kill you, walk it off."
yeah,
And then immediately the next person the camera shows us is Pietro reacting to that.
yeah.
Then during the battle, he's like running in front of some people like Sarkovian military
Mhm.
or police, and they shoot him with a single bullet, and he kind of looks back at them. They shrug, and then finally he gets filled with bullets
Yeah,
and dies.
I don't know if I don't know if that is foreshadowing, but everybody
It's
knows
not
that.
foreshadowing that you would pick up.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's weird foreshadowing. I think it's clearly Joss Whedon doing that
Well,
intentionally, but it's
yeah.
not the kind of foreshadowing that you would really pick up on until after you've seen the whole movie once.
And Josh Whedon kills off characters. So everybody knows that he's going to do that. He
That's
does that.
true.
That's
That's
his
true.
thing. And so it's really like so I don't
They
know.
should really never let him near like a comic book movie again.
Well, he does okay.
Let him kill off his own characters.
Firefly was fun.
Yeah, that's his own characters.
Yeah, but see the thing is, it is what it is. Like he's not the first director or storyteller to use death as a emotional hammer. Like I tell them I don't know if my listeners know, but I teach creative writing, and I tell my students all the time, death is lazy. If you want an emotional reaction from your viewers, from your readers, then there's other ways to do it. But creating a connection between you or a character, and then killing off that character to make you feel something super easy and super lazy. But it's also something that people have seen happen in popular stories, popular comics, popular movies, and they understand that is successful, and then they copy it. So it's
Right.
nothing until people stop doing it wholesale across all of civilization. It's just going to keep going.
Yeah. All right. What can you tell us about the Iron Legion? Is
That
that a
doesn't really.
thing?
No, it made that up for the movie,
Ah, okay.
and they only used it for like 3 seconds. A couple of robots, and that was it. It's like not even a thing.
Yeah, and they're really weird. They're like saying weird things to the people in the town that it's strange. It was just strange.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
Like you would think a robot that Tony Stark created would be able to communicate a little bit better with people than those did. I don't know. It was just really, 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 really weird.
Hang on, I didn't lie. I'm telling the truth. But the Iron Legion is a thing in the comics, but it's not what you think. It was a collection of different people wearing the armor.
Okay.
I put in the show notes.
Yeah. In this one,
Um,
it's automatons, and they speak in a very bureaucratic way to the people they're trying to protect.
yeah, I mean, so if we look at Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, and then we look at Age of Ultron, and we look at all this stuff, Tony Stark is not emotionally healthy as a person uh, at all. But the movie never establishes that. It
Yeah,
never.
is this the next? Well, I guess there was an Avengers between Iron Man 3 and this, right?
No, no, no,
No.
no, no. It was Iron Man 3, and then he took out his reactor out of his chest, and then they did Age of Ultron. We're watching these in order,
Yeah, okay. All
kind of.
right. Um,
But no, no. So Tony Stark is not emotionally healthy, and they established that in Iron Man 3 when he was having panic attacks and stuff like that.
right, yeah,
Uh,
he's clearly still he's clearly still having a problem in this movie.
yeah, but yeah, because like okay, he had Wanda gave him a vision, right? And then because of what he saw, he panics and creates artificial intelligence, which is a whole other thing that we might not have time to get to. The artificial intelligence turns into a manic, crazy robot, almost
Mhm.
kills the entire planet. Then Tony Stark retires. There's no punishment for him. He's like, oh, like you killed a lot of people. That was your fault. Oh well.
Mhm.
And like I guess he had good intentions, but his intentions are bad. Like he keeps making huge mistakes. And
Surprising how much Bruce Banner went along with it, or how easily he went along with it.
well, I, I if a friend of mine said, "Hey man, let's create this artificial intelligence," I'd probably be like, "Sure, what could go wrong?" But then when it went wrong, I'd be like, this is our fault. We need to deal with it, and then we need to, take responsibility for it and probably legal consequences. But it's just
Mhm.
I don't know.
Uh,
Um,
all
I'm not
right.
sure where that came from. Oh, but
Uh,
yeah, the Iron Legion stuff. So with
Iron
Iron
Legion, yeah.
Legion, yeah, it's just like Tony Stark has control issues. He thinks that these robots going into a town saying, "Hey, be calm, everything's fine," is a good thing. But in fact, the Avengers are seen as very much like pre post 9/11 military, United States military in Iraq, and that was definitely purposeful, right? Like
Mhm.
the Avengers are going around the world doing whatever they want, and then people are getting caught up in the consequences, and that's and like when we talk about when they talk about extremists becoming extremists, right? Usually, like people say the Iraq War by the United States is the reason why so many young people became extremists in um in Iraq in the first place, and then you got Wanda and Pietro become extremists, join Hydra, all that kind of stuff. It's nice. It's a nice, neat little bundle together. But the story needs to do more with Iron Man because Tony Stark's a problem. And the more we watch these movies, the more I realize Tony Stark has mental issues, and we can get into more of that when we talk about Civil War soon.
Oh, speaking of which, I read recently that there's a guy that was at Marvel. He was in charge, I guess, before Kevin Feige was. And apparently, both John Favreau and the director of Iron Man 3, whose name I don't remember, they both wanted to do the Devil in a
Hmm.
Bottle storyline,
Hmm.
and this guy shut him down twice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm not
So,
surprised about that.
so now you know, Tony Stark's mental issues are being basically being dragged out through the entire, um, series instead of having some kind of a resolution in a movie.
100%, man. Like they could have easily had Iron Man 3 or Iron Man 2, him being an alcoholic and dealing with alcoholism, which would have been a great story. But they just didn't do that. And instead we get this convoluted, like, I want to make the world safe, cover it in an iron suit of armor.
Mhm.
But every time he does it, he screws things up and gets worse and gets worse and worse and worse.
And again, Steve Rogers is well written in this movie. He says, "What are you thinking, man? We shouldn't be creating things that are too powerful that we can't control, that are more dangerous to the people of Earth than it is, um, you know, safe for them."
Yeah, but if Tony Stark would have created Ultron and Ultron was benign and nice, imagine that robot and his abilities when Thanos shows up. He wouldn't have Thanos wouldn't have done anything. He couldn't have done anything, right? Like Vision would have never been Vision probably would have been created, but the Stone would have been probably protected better. No, Tony Stark's got a really good point. If Thanos showed up and their entire planet is like monitored by a crazy super robot system, like it would have been a completely different situation. But what happened was we didn't have that, and it turned out that half the universe was killed off. So
An easily controlled Ultron is basically the same thing as Nick Fury's helicarriers.
Mm,
You've got to worry about who has control of that thing.
yeah, I agree with that. But in Tony's mind, he's like, I will have control of it, so it'll be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
It's an interesting dynamic. I
Hmm.
don't. The show touches. I mean, the movie touches on it a little bit. I wish the movie would have touched on it much, much more. And what we're all talking about now doesn't make sense when we get to Civil War, because then Tony Stark says something completely different. So it's like we can talk about that later.
Okay. All right. The first time that Scarlet Witch mind bends somebody in this movie is when she does it to Tony Stark.
Yeah,
He is in Strucker's lab and he has just walked past a big skeleton. I rewinded a couple of times. It looks like it's a big dinosaur skeleton to me, but then in his imagination, it's one of those creatures from, um, the Battle of New York.
yeah, that's what it was.
That's what the skeleton was in Strucker's
Yeah,
lab.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I was just wondering about that because I rewinded a couple of times. It didn't look that big before the mind melding.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay. All right. I thought it was a big dinosaur, and I was going to ask you if like Strucker had anything to do with like big dinosaurs.
No,
Okay.
no,
All right.
he has the same amount of stuff to do with big dinosaurs as everybody else does, which is a lot in comic books.
All right. Helen Cho.
Yes,
Tell us about her.
she is the mother of Amadeus Cho, which is a major Hulk character in the comics. At some point, Amadeus, he's a super smart, tech wizard, and he hangs out with Hulk for a long time, and he becomes the Hulk at some point, I think. But as far as Helen,
What color Hulk is he?
green.
Oh, good. Okay.
There's in the history of Hulk comics. There's a lot of different times where different people get gamma radiation treatment or gets connections to different things and then become Hulks. So
Mhm.
I think he might be like the fifth or sixth.
Okay.
Um, and it's really good storylines too. The original, the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, that some of that was based off of the Amadeus Cho storyline stuff.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, but in the comics, Helen's not as a super smart scientist person as we see in the movie, and I'm actually kind of surprised that we don't get more Hulk connections. I mean, Helen, I didn't know that Helen Cho was the Helen Cho from the comics until I did my show notes last night, and then when I realized it, I was like, well, this is a missed opportunity because Amadeus Cho would have been awesome. But we didn't get that, so it's kind of weird that they didn't do much more with that.
Okay. So she's really nothing like what we see in the movie at all.
No,
Hmm.
no, 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 no.
Okay. Um, in this movie, there's another thing that Tony designed to try to save the planet. It's Veronica.
That is designed to
Actually, it was
deal.
designed by Banner.
It was designed by Banner and Tony Stark to deal
Okay.
with the Hulk if he had another thingy
That's the only
outbreak.
reason for it is to deal with the Hulk.
Yes. Yes. That's the only reason for it. Well, I mean, it's nice to have a massive robot a massive suit of armor to deal with any kind of threats, but that was specifically designed to deal with Banner when he turned into the Hulk.
Is Veronica the name of the Hulk Buster suit, or is it that thing that's like a
It
satellite
it's
around
the
the?
entire system. So the satellite system itself is Veronica, and then the suit is Hulkbuster suit. So that entire satellite system that was shooting stuff out is Veronica. Yeah,
Hmm.
you don't
Okay.
seem you don't seem satisfied with that.
No, is that from the comics or is that from Joss Whedon?
Veronica is not from the comics, but Hulkbuster is definitely from the comics. This is my show notes. There's been many different iterations of the Hulkbuster suits over the years. The
Hmm.
one of them was one of them I liked a lot is a story called I forget the story now. But Hulk leaves the planet for a while, comes back, and is real mad, and Iron Man has to fight him in a super amazing suit. So the Hulkbuster suits are definitely in the comics, and that's why people got really excited, I guess, because we get a fight scene with Iron Man and the Hulk. But it's very gratuitous. Like it's just designed to have a fight scene between Iron Man and the Hulk. And it's, I think it showed the power of the Hulk. I think that if you look at all the different Avengers, all the different Marvel Comics movies from
Mhm.
Iron Man 1 until the last one, right? We only have a couple of different places where we get to see Hulk shine. We get to see him in Avengers 1, and then Age of Ultron. And Age of Ultron, we really get to see his destructive power. Like, he's super powerful, he's super strong.
Right.
If you look at the power levels in that fight scene with Iron Man and the Hulk, that is
Mm.
accurate, not 100% accurate, but really close to accurate comic book level awesomeness. Like, it's gonna be it's a fun fight scene to watch. It's really dynamic. It's probably the best thing the movie did. But the reason behind it is somewhat problematic. But still it works, and it's good. It's
Why
good.
do you say it's somewhat problematic?
Well, I mean, it's convenient. I mean, like, Scarlet Witch, messes with Banner's mind. He turns into the Hulk. He's crazy and he's just bashing everything. So, I mean, it makes sense in the story. It makes sense, but it's
Mhm.
also the directors are sitting around thinking we need a cool fight scene with the Hulk, and they get it with the iron with that. So it's
The
fine.
second time this has happened in the MCU.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, it's not uncommon if you look at the Marvel comics. The Hulk is manipulated by Loki and a bunch of other people throughout the years, so it's not uncommon for the Hulk to be manipulated. That happens all the time.
Okay.
And the Avengers have fought the Hulk more times than anybody can count. It happens quite a bit.
Tell us why the Hulkbuster suit exists. Is it just so that Tony Stark can try to calm down the Hulk, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happened is like, so if you look at Bruce Banner, at some point, I'm just making all this stuff up. Some point, Tony Stark and the Avengers are like, "Hey, we want you to join the Avengers," and he's like, "Well, I will, but I can't control the Hulk 100%. I don't know what's going to happen." And then Iron Man's like, "Well, I'll build a super suit. We'll build together, and if something goes wrong, if he seems like he's out of control, we'll have a check." And it worked. I mean, it was a check. It did work. It just destroyed an entire city,
Mhm.
but it did work. So, and at some point too, they get that whole lullaby Black Widow thing to also keep him in check, which is a convoluted mess. Um, but that's the only
Is
reason.
that from the comics too, or
No, no,
no?
man, no,
Okay.
absolutely not. That's no, God, no, no, no,
Okay.
no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
I liked that way of calming down the Hulk better than, "Hey, let me, take my friend up into the sky and then smash him down into this skyscraper that's under construction."
Well, I mean, it's
Leveling the skyscraper in the middle of a city with people walking around. Seems like there's probably better ways to calm down the Hulk than doing that.
no, there's not. There's
By the
not.
way, he still was awake after that, like, he
Yeah,
was
dude.
conscious after that.
No, yeah, it's no calming the Hulk down. Like, in the comics, you're not doing that. Like, the more you try to calm him down, the more mad he's going to get. Like,
Taking
there's nothing you can do. That's like the Hulk in the comics is a force of actual nature. Like, there's actual a comic where the Hulk attacks and it's treated as if it's a tornado. Like, people are like, "Oh, the Hulk's here! Oh my gosh!" And so, like, in the comics, like, you're not doing that. And so, like, yeah, I mean, it seems over the top, and it is just a good reason to have a fight scene in a movie, right? So they're
Mhm.
doing that. But also, it's comic accurate. Like, if the Hulk just goes manic, you have to fight him, and it's going to be bad because the Hulk is one of, if not the strongest thing on the entire planet. He's like raw rage, and you're not and like. And I know it seems like there should be some way to get him to chill out, but there's not.
Seems
I
like
do.
fighting him would increase his rage.
Yeah, it does. The more anger he gets, the more rage he gets, and the stronger he gets.
Yeah, I mean, it
Technically,
it seems like the Hulk did less damage before Tony Stark engaged him in the Hulkbuster suit.
well, he was hurting people. I mean, when Tony engaged him for the first time, he was bashing a woman. Like, a woman was in a car, and he was beating up the car. So it's like he has to be, calm. What I would have liked to seen is like for Tony to kind of like get him to chase him out of the city limits, but that didn't. But of course, we're dealing with logical issues, and we're dealing with a movie. Like, I don't want to watch a movie where Tony's talking to Hulk and then Hulk comes down. I want to see him fight. But the logical issues, if this happened in the real world, of
Yeah.
course, it's not going to work out the same way. So
Seems like if you've got the Hulk and you're flying him around, fly him to a less populated area and to continue the fight. I don't know. That's just me. I'm not a super smart billionaire or anything, but that's what I would have done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the next time we get into a super fight with the Hulk, we'll keep all that stuff in mind.
Okay. All right. What about Ultron? Ultron, he's from the
Ultron.
comics?
Yeah, he is from the comics.
Yeah.
I've told you this before. Tony Stark does not create Ultron in the comics. Hank Pym creates Ultron in the comics.
Does he do it with the mind gem?
He does not. Hank Pym is just being a scientist trying to create an artificial intelligence. He accidentally creates Ultron. Ultron becomes sentient. He hypnotizes Hank Pym so he doesn't remember what he did, and then Ultron leaves and he begins his evolution. And if you look at the show notes, I've never seen show notes this long. Ultron has been around a long time, and he's had a very complex evolution. He's changed himself so many times. Um, and it's amazing. It's actually he's like one of the most, if not the coolest character the Avengers have dealt with. And I don't think he's treated 100% well in this movie, but it is what
They
it is.
do. He does talk about evolving several times in the movie, so
Yeah, but
that's a
so
good
take
tie-in.
that idea of evolution, but
Mhm.
then Ultron showed up in 1968. So he's been around. So he's evolved a long, long time. Avengers number 54. So, and Ultron's just mad at Hank Pym. That's all he wants is Hank Pym to die because he doesn't think that Hank Pym should have created him, or he doesn't think that Hank Pym respects him. It's just a lot. And so
Mhm.
and this is so I understand why Marvel and the studio heads and stuff made Iron Man the creator of Ultron. I understand that, but they lose so much when they do it because the Hank Pym Ultron connection is so rich, full of great stories. Hank Pym is a tragic character. Hank Pym in the comics is Ant-Man at first, then he becomes Giant Man, but at some point he has an emotional fracture, emotional breakdown. And this is a big deal in the comics. He hits his wife, Janet. Janet, she's the Wasp. She actually hits him. He hits her. It's physical abuse, and the comics had to deal with the fact that a superhero beat his wife, right? And like they had to do a whole storyline about like how he had to get treatment, had to get help. Their marriage was suffering, and it's something that was a part of the storyline for a very long period of time. And like when you look at Hank Pym in the comics, you understand, okay, it's Hank, but also, man, he's a tragic character. He's been through a lot, and we just don't have that now. We just won't get it, because it's just not going to happen. And it's a core part of Hank Pym and the Avengers storylines is the fact that they have people in there. The whole idea of the Avengers is supposed to be a group of people who try to save the world, but each one has problems, and we have to deal with it. Like their personal issues keep coming up in their superhero world, and we do get some of that in the movies, but not nearly as much as we get in the Avengers. So I understand how they couldn't introduce Hank Pym. They could have. They could have introduced Hank Pym in this movie. They could have done that. They just didn't
Mhm.
want to. And so what we get is we get half, maybe a third of what we really should have got.
Do you know what our next movie is?
Ant-Man, right?
Yeah, our next movie is Ant-Man. So
Yeah.
they were off by one.
hmm
Yeah.
They could have done it. They could have done it, but it is what it is.
Okay. Yeah, they did this movie with, I guess, Hank Pym's big bad villain, and then giving it to Tony Stark, and then followed up with a Ant-Man movie. So that's interesting.
hmm
I wonder if there was a change of department heads around the time of these two movies.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, in some ways, they have to deal with budgets. You can't just hire whoever they want. But I think it's a lack of creativity if they couldn't figure out how to introduce Ultron. Like making Iron Man, making Tony Stark the person who created Ultron is just a huge departure from the comics. It's a massive departure. And there were real consequences when Hank Pym created Ultron. Real consequences. And one of the consequences is he left the team. All kinds of stuff. So.
Hank Pym left the team.
Oh, everybody leaves the team once in a while. So yeah.
Yeah.
But Hank Pym's mental instability was partially because he created Ultron. Like some people have theorized that
Mm,
his mental instability is why Ultron's so bad.
I
If he
could see
would
that.
so, but I mean, we just won't get it.
Yeah. All right. What can you tell us about Ulysses Klaue?
Not a whole bunch. He's a Black Panther villain, sort of. He's an Avengers villain, sort of. His history is
That makes sense. He's stealing vibranium from
mhm.
Wakanda.
Yeah, he looks completely different than he does in the movie. But he I'm not sure exactly how he is connected to Wakanda, but he is one of these villains who understood the power of Wakanda technology, understood vibranium, and his arm is like he gets his arm cut off in this, which is kind of foreshadowing. But in the comics, he has like an arm with a little like I don't know, like a little disc on it. It's like a little satellite disc on it that he can like shoot sound waves out. It sounds ridiculous when I'm
That's
explaining.
weird.
Yeah. But anyway,
When you
uh,
said when
no,
you said he had an arm with a little disc on it,
it's the only way I can.
I was imagining like a pizza cutter.
No, it's the only way I can really explain it.
Okay, yeah,
But he's not a B. I would say he's a B level villain. So he's not that big a deal. Him being in Age of Ultron is helping, and them talking about vibranium is prepping the world for Black Panther. So
right.
when he's mentioned, the vibranium is mentioned, then we know that we're getting ready to get Black Panther soon. So I
Oh,
think,
so is Ultron ever made of vibranium in the
oh
comics?
yes, yes, that's a big deal because
Is
he's
he
made.
originally vibranium?
No, not originally, but
No?
he makes himself out of vibranium. He also makes himself out of
Antimantium?
antimantium, which is what Wolverine's bones and claws are made of.
Right.
So yeah, so he keeps so there's a storyline where he makes himself out of vibranium, and Spider-Man and Black Panther has to deal with that. And so yeah, if there's been a ton of times where Ultron has enhanced himself, and he's used those different metals, 100%.
Okay. Anything else?
Not about Ulysses Klaue, no. It's not much.
He was played by Andy Serkis.
He's great. I think they didn't use him very well because he does get killed in Black Panther, and I don't know why they keep killing off these great villains. I guess they just want to clean things up. I guess, but it's like, don't you think about the future, guys? It's just weird.
So is Ultron still functioning in the comics?
Now, in the comics, oh yes. In fact, there was a huge storyline
It seems
called.
like you've got to kill off a character like Ultron. Like you can't let that
They
just
keep
hang
doing
around in
it,
the
and
background.
they keep doing it, and he keeps coming back. That's the whole thing. Like they think he's dead, he's not. He keeps coming back in the comics, which is great. He's just this thing that doesn't stop. But I don't want to give too much away. I don't know why, because this podcast is about doing that. But the whole the Guardians, the current version of the Guardians of the Galaxy that we see in the movies,
Mhm.
they formed because of Ultron. At some
Ah,
point, Ultron his consciousness is beamed out into space, and he gets connected to these techno space aliens, and he takes them over, and he rules like all of the Kree galaxy, and like these a bunch of people have to try superheroes and alien races try to kill him, and like it's just, he almost destroys everything. So yeah, he's still around.
okay. What about what's the deal with Black Widow's glowy suit?
Who?
Black Widow, she has a glowy suit in
I
this.
don't know.
Her
Do
suit
we
has
have to
like
talk about?
blue glowy piping on it.
I don't know. It's
It's
nothing.
really bad.
It's just she's bad in this period. like I like it's just bad. Like I don't. Like it's just not good. It's just not good. Like the idea
It looks like
that
she's wearing a Tron suit.
the idea that Black Widow would have a romantic engagement with Bruce Banner is ridiculous. And it's
I
just
did not remember that at all. Does it carry past out of this movie at all?
no, because it's dumb. No, it's dumb. It's super dumb. And like I understand. Okay, so in the movie, there's an emotional place where Black Widow says that
This
she
is
tells
this is
us.
another thing where I think people shouldn't let um what's his name?
Josh Whedon.
Joss Whedon near
I
their
agree. I agree.
characters.
I agree with this because like she says, "Hey, I can't be with you because I can't have children." That's a bunch of crap. Like it's like there's millions of people who have healthy relationships, marriages, and don't have kids, and it's insulting to people who actually can't have kids that you can't have a family because you can't have kids. It's
No, I
just
think she was saying what she was saying is he said the same thing and she was saying, "Well, neither can I, so that's not a reason for us not to be together."
Okay, that somewhat fixes it, but still, it's just like
But it's still a weird relationship that I did not remember
it's
carrying further than
so.
this movie,
It,
and it's
I don't understand why they think we need it. We are comic book
why he thinks we
fans.
need it.
Yeah,
Why Joss thinks we need
we
it.
don't need a love relationship. We
Right.
don't. We're and you know what? We could get it. We could get it. We have Vision and Scarlet Witch. We'll get something at some point.
R
I just
right.
don't. We want to see people fight things, and we want to see buildings blow up. I don't want to be like, oh, I want them to get together. Like, there's never been a moment in any comic book fan's time. Well, that's probably not true, but it's just like it's not. This isn't the movie for it, and it's just kind of bad. It's just really, really bad. They don't know what to do with Scarlett Johansson. They don't know what to do with Black Widow, and so they keep doing things that don't work. It will start working soon when we get to Civil War and the Infinity War and Endgame. But like Joss Whedon did a terrible job with her. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Everybody
Yeah.
does really until later.
The only good line in that whole thread through the movie was, Clint Barton's wife.
Mm,
She's talking to him about how she noticed that they're having a relationship, and Clint's like, "Huh? What are you talking about?" And she's like she says something to him and then says, "Hawkeye."
yeah, that's funny.
That was the only good thing about it.
Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of good relationships that if they could have gotten rid of this Banner Black Widow relationship, they could have enhanced more. Like they could have showed the friendship between Scarlet Witch and Clint more. They could have
Right.
enhanced more of Tony Stark and Captain America's like tension. They could have enhanced that more. They could have worked on any number of different relationships. But I just don't think Josh Whedon was a very good storyteller for this movie. Like, there's no besides contractual problems, they didn't need to kill off Quicksilver. They could have
This
kept him
movie
around.
might be going at my bottom of the list for our rankings.
It's sad because it could have been so good. It's sad because it could have been so good. That's what makes me sad about it. It could have been but this movie is holding up a lot because it does have to start prepping us more for the Infinity War. Like I mean, the Infinity War is going to be the next Avengers movie. They have to start prepping us for that. It's a lot. They have to do a lot of work. But this movie just didn't. Like I was thinking, this movie had to do the same thing that Captain America: Civil War did, but it didn't do it as well.
How does the Scarlet Witch, Wanda, how does she give Thor visions of Thanos, well, maybe not Thanos, but of the Infinity Stones and the Gauntlet?
I don't think she gets to pick the visions. I think when she does her little whammo, she just triggers something in your mind that heightens your highest fears. I don't think she can't like, okay, I'm going to like dig into. I think she can dig into what you're afraid of and then enhance it, but I don't think she can like give it to him.
So Thor already knows about all those, even though at this point we really only know about 2?
Well, see, the thing is, Thor, he had that there was a fear in him. So like hey, there's something big coming, but you don't know what it is. And then he goes into that weird bath pool and then gets another vision, right? Remember that?
The weird what?
He goes into that weird pool and he walks into the water and he gets electric shocked and he sees a bigger vision of the Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
Did
I
you?
just thought that was like a flashback or something.
Mm-mm. So it's like so Wanda doesn't have any like intel that he doesn't have. She just gets to trigger something in him.
Right. Okay. All right. In this movie, Jarvis becomes Vision.
Hmm.
Is that comic accurate?
No, absolutely not. Jarvis is an old man in the comics.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's
He's
not
not
even
even an
an
AI.
AI assistant in the comics. He's a
Yeah.
butler.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So the
And
Vision is.
Hank Pym created Vision?
I think so. I did some little checking to make sure I was around this. To my knowledge, the Vision was created by Ultron, but then he gained a consciousness and then became a good guy.
Say that again?
So Ultron created the Vision. But then the Vision realized that Ultron was evil, and then he left the Vision and became a good guy.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. By the way, speaking of Jarvis being a butler, I did watch a couple of episodes of Agent Carter, and Jarvis is a butler in there.
Yeah, I should. I should watch that. I never watched it. Is it good?
The few episodes I've seen so far are good. Yeah,
I should watch those.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
so apparently like the AI version of Jarvis was based off that butler.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I've got. What else is there that you want to tell us about?
I think we covered it. But yeah, so the Ultron does create the Vision just like he did in the movie, and he does it in the comics. Except, do remember that there is a Kang Immortus connection between the Vision's creation, and we kind of talked on that a little bit. But if you want more details about that, you should read Avengers Forever, which I've been saying a long time. Um, what else? That's it. That's not much else. We kind of covered it pretty good, actually. I thought we would have missed something, but no, we got nailed it. We nailed it pretty good.
Do
I
you
just got.
see a way for Quicksilver to come back into the movies?
I think the only way we could have seen that is already gone. Like, if we looked at if we looked at WandaVision, um, we had a chance for that to happen. Maybe in the Doctor Strange movie, we'll get some kind of multiverse thing. But I
Mm,
just don't think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the heads there are interested in Quicksilver. And sadly, I just don't think they're interested in doing anything with him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll get some kind of surprise, but I just don't. I don't see it.
okay.
Uh,
All right. Well,
other,
I think that's it. Right?
yeah, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. Wait, so let's see, WandaVision stuff, got that. Black Widow, Hulk stuff was stupid. It shouldn't have done it. Got that. Oh, we did. So I think one thing we missed is how at the end of the movie we get a brand new Avengers team. That is comic accurate. Every once in a while, the Avengers lineup is changed, not completely, but it's changed up. And I do like the fact that at the end of this Avengers movie, we get a brand new set of Avengers. That feels right to me. It feels like, okay, that's a good movement. This is a good change. And when you and the original Avengers was Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, Thor, Ant Man, and then the Wasp. But then the second major change up was Captain America, Hawkeye, Black Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and the Vision. So it's more accurate as far as like the change makes sense. So
Mm,
I like that they had a whole new team at the end. I think that the new team was more interesting than the old team. And I think when we get to the next big Avengers story, which is Captain America Civil War, I think that dynamic works a lot better. So, and plus Josh Whedon is gone after this, so again, good. Bye.
right. Okay. Yeah, that'll be good. All right. Next movie is Ant-Man.
I need to be watched. I haven't watched it in a long time, and it's one of your favorites, right?
It's one of my favorites. Yeah. It's
Okay.
pretty good. Good cast, good writing, pretty good direction.
It's got some interesting stuff in there. There's definitely things in that movie that are different than the comics for sure. So I'll have to kind of get into the weeds of that, but not much. So it'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be good.
Yeah. All right. So if you're listening to us, please give us a review and a rating on whatever your podcasting app of choice is. We'd really appreciate that. You can listen to this podcast pretty much everywhere that you can find podcasts. If you're trying to listen through some way and you don't see us there, let us know. We're at Super Sideshow on Twitter. Jay, what else do you have to tell the listeners?
Check my Twitter out at jslacks, JAYSLACKS, and also I posted a new post on Medium. It's in the show notes, and it talks about some of the stuff we talked about today. So the idea that the comics and the movies are diverging in such a way that it's not doing what maybe it should do. Is it a problem? And so if you like our discussions on the podcast, engage
Hmm.
with us on Medium, read the Medium post, and I'm hopefully I will start getting some self discipline enough that I'll be posting those Medium posts a lot. So we'll just have to wait and see.